really trust us.
Marry my daughter.
Is she a prostitute?
The eyes of a dying giraffe can change a man.
We try make blood much big.
Happy birthday, monkey spanker. No, really trust us.
Hope you enjoyed the show.
Hello, welcome to the podcast No Really Trust Us, where we, the volunteers, watch movies that may not look like they're particularly great, but no really trust us, they really are good. With me, as always, are my partners in crime, Dedo and Ken. Say hello to the people, Dedo.
Hello, people. I got to admit, I'm actually a little confused. I thought this podcast was three bearded dudes talk about shit.
Well, I think that's all movie discussion, YouTube channels, and podcasts.
Oh, right. That's a good point.
A beard with slight gray in it is a requirement to have a show like this. So
Yes.
we fortunately all meet that requirement. So
We do.
In spades.
We are knocking that out of the park. Anyways.
And who are you, Dedo? What do you do?
I make stupid jokes. I am Dedo. I am a video editor, writer, occasional filmmaker, and I like movies that no one's heard of. And I like telling people about them because I have a beard, and thus I assume everyone wants to hear what I have to say.
That is, of course, the case. And Ken, tell the people about yourself.
I am Ken. I don't have a nickname. I am.
We're still working on that, Ken. We still got to work on it.
I know. It's yeah. By the end of the season, maybe we'll get one for me.
R.I.P. Cornstar.
Yes.
You burned bright.
Cornstar was pretty good.
It was not bad.
We're given the nature of today's film, we could call you the cornographer. That's
Oh, I like that. I like that. It sounds dirty, but it isn't. I like that.
Oh boy, that might be it. At least for this.
You're lucky
at
that
least
has
for
so
today.
many syllables. Otherwise, I would absolutely commit to that.
You would.
Yeah.
So I'm a video producer and a writer. I also love movies that nobody's ever heard of and love talking about them. And I almost shaved my beard off today, so I'm glad I didn't because I
What?
would not have fit in. Have fit in with the group.
Like completely?
Maybe not completely, but a lot shorter.
Okay. All right.
So glad you didn't. And I'm Matt McNevin. I'm a commercial video producer and also a adjunct professor at American University, hence my nickname, The Professor. And I'm here to introduce today's film, which is a film called Mute Witness, which at first I was a little reluctant to do it for this podcast because kind of the premise of this podcast is that we kind of take movies that either don't look promising or that people haven't really heard of. And I thought that this movie may have been a little too big or too well known for that. But I did a little research in my immediate circle, both amongst film nerds and amongst normies, I guess we'll call them. And none of the normies knew what the hell I was talking about. None of them even heard of it. And there's even some friends of mine who are, are movie fans, not film nerds, but like movie fans who hadn't really heard of it. So I figured, okay, well, that gives me enough justification to do this one, because this is a film I have loved for a long time. Going back to my video store days, this was always frequently on my picks list for customers to rent. And Ken, you had heard of it prior to doing it for this film, for this show, right?
Yeah, I had heard of it, but I had never seen it. But I remember it from the 90s because I'm so old. But I remember, I did remember the movie coming out. I remember the poster. There's a really memorable poster with a woman's lips sewn shut. And I knew it. I think I knew it had been filmed in Russia, in Moscow. But I think that's all I knew. And I knew it was like a Hitchcockian thriller.
Yeah.
But I think that was about all I knew going into it.
And Dedo, what was your knowledge of this film prior to the episode?
Virtually nothing. The poster did look familiar, but on the other hand, I'm sure there's like a few posters out there in the horror world of people with their lips sewn shut. So yeah, this was not one that I recall seeing on the video store shelves as I wasted my youth. So I went in this one pretty blank, and I was better viewer for it, I think.
Yeah, that poster was pretty widely circulated. Even if you hadn't heard of the movie, you probably at some point on the internet seen some version of that poster, which was the very famous, the word mute in sutures over a woman's mouth, and then below it in red it says witness. And I want to say, like, it seems like that was the first time I saw that kind of artistic idea for a poster, and then ever since then, that turns up all the time. Like Ken, you mentioned, like that style of, you know, the sutures forming a word or like going over someone's mouth has been done a lot. And I'm want to say this is patient zero for that. I think anyway.
It's actually, I
Um,
feel like maybe a little misleading too. I think as clever a poster as it
mm,
is, I look at that and I think this is a
yeah.
movie about a courtroom trial and witness intimidation. Like so,
Hmm.
like I wouldn't even expect this
Yeah.
in the I would expect this in the
Yeah.
drama section, you know, like so
Right.
I do
Or
wonder if that affected its popularity a
I
little.
always thought it was more of a horror movie too, which I
Yeah.
think you could also interpret
That's
that
I'd
as
say
like a
Ken.
horror
That's what.
movie
Yeah.
image. And I think that's now where we see it a lot, that kind of similar
Yeah.
similar vibe.
Yeah, like it does have kind of a torture porny kind of look to it, which is not the film at all. In fact, the director, and I would agree with him, the director doesn't even consider this a horror film. He considered it a suspense film.
Oh,
And I would
absolutely.
say that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it horror at all. And it does have like a horror poster. And also that's also not the lead actress from the movie, which which I don't know. I don't know why that always bothers me
Classic.
when they
Yeah.
have different actors on the poster than they do in the movie. But that's just me, I guess.
Well, IMDb
But
has
anyway,
sorry, IMDb
yeah,
seems to
good.
have an alternate poster that does have it looks like it's British.
Yeah,
Um
it looks lame.
yeah, and it's like so it's a picture of her in the bath because you got to be like, "Hey guys, there's a
Yeah.
naked lady in this movie." But it's stamped on her mouth instead of
Mm.
stitched. And then I this year's Shallow Grave by Time Out, which I'm not sure what was
Has
next year's Shallow Grave
yeah.
like.
Again, has nothing to do with Shallow Grave. Is not really the same type of
Yeah,
film. It's just has nothing to do with it. Which I don't know why they had trouble selling this movie because it's pretty easily sold, I think. But that's just me, I guess. But before we get too far, we should, I guess, do a quick little synopsis of it. I'm going to do this on the fly because there's not much to it. So, and basically the premise of it is that the main character is a woman named Billy, and she is the mute witness of the title. She is mute. She's not deaf, but it's established early on that she is hard of hearing. So she has trouble hearing people, but isn't totally deaf. So she speaks only through sign language. And she is a special effects makeup person, and she's working on a film in Russia. And one night she gets stuck in the studio, and she goes back to her box of effects, and she notices that there's another film being shot unofficially when the studio is dark, and she comes to realize that it's actually a snuff film being filmed, and the woman is actually being murdered on camera. And she witnesses this, and the two people filming the film see her, and she runs away and tries to escape, and she does manage to escape, and then she has to convince the authorities and the people around her that this is real and it really happened. And then the cat and mouse game continues where the killers try to get to her and she tries to stop them, and it's a whole cat and mouse game until the very end. So that's pretty much it. It's just, it's your classic kind of Hitchcock setup. I mean, Ken called it a Hitchcockian, and I know that word is kind of overused a lot, I think, to describe just generic suspense films that aren't really Hitchcock. But if ever a term were to use to describe the film, it's Hitchcockian because it pulls kind of wholesale a lot of Hitchcockian techniques and tropes and devices that he used and puts them all together, I think, in a really clever and really well done way that really displays a lot of craft, I think. Um, so what did you guys think overall in watching it? Because it's the first time both of you had seen it. I've seen this movie, I don't know, a dozen times over the years. I really love it. I really like it a lot. And I know when we choose these films, we're not really slaves to any sort of algorithm based on the movies we choose. But I have to say, I do have my 4K Arrow Films Mute Witness, which just came out not long ago. and it's a really great transfer. They went back to the original camera negative. They restored it. If you're a physical media nerd like I am, Arrow Films does great work. So they don't sponsor us. I'm not being paid to say that. But if you
They don't
like a
sponsor
film
us
that Arrow
yet.
Films does, get it. That's right. Yeah. But Arrow Films does a really great job, and they did a great job with this because they did a great job restoring it. And I watched it from that disc, and it looks gorgeous. And even on it is available on Shudder and various streaming services, and for rent and things like that. And it still looks pretty good. But the 4K disc just looks gorgeous. So what did you guys think seeing it the first time?
I watched it on Shudder, and it looked gorgeous, and that's what my number one comment is. Holy hell, is this movie well shot? Like, mad props to. Wait, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Damn it, I had it queued up and everything. Egon Werden, the director of photography, who seems to be, like most of the crew, a Russian, presumably. And yeah, like I just, oh my God, every shot he was telling the story with the camera movement, with the rack focus, just so awesome. And just gorgeous.
And both he and the director make great
palette.
use. Great use of the 235 frame.
Yeah.
Of like really building suspense and tension with that, where kind of you can see her on one side and see the killer on the other side, and just that tension of seeing them both in the frame at the same time, and that proximity I think really helps.
Yeah,
too.
there was like literally one moment where I was like unhappy with the framing, and that was when she was witnessing the murder, and I was like, why are we not getting an over the shoulder to put her in the space? And maybe they just literally didn't have her that day and they couldn't, but like that was the one time where I was like, wait, it's jarring. I know she's reacting to it and we're seeing it, but I'm not truly seeing her see it, and I want to, but other than that, oh, amazing. And the sound design, close, A+ for cinematography, solid A for the sound design. All the little moments, especially in the first half of the movie when she's running from the dudes, you hear them in the space, like just fucking fantastic. So yeah, I will say, second half of the movie, the tone shifts. It almost becomes a slapstick comedy, but it doesn't. But it like looks like somebody thought it should be. And on the one hand, like it's awesome they never once punched down and used her disability as a source of comedy. But like there were still a lot of moments where I'm like, wait, am I supposed to laugh at that? Like, and the director character, who Evan Richards, who plays Andy Clark, like he was just so whiny, and like, yeah, he was supposed to be self-centered, he was supposed to be a director, but at the same time it was like too much, because it was like, no dude, you'd be freaking out here a little bit more. So
Right.
so I love the first half. The second half I cooled a bit. When you factor in the rather abrupt ending, I did feel a bit unsatisfied. I would absolutely recommend the movie, but it went from looking to be like an absolute home run to probably just an infield double. So use baseball, which is completely inappropriate.
It's at least off the wall.
All right,
it's
fair.
at least off the wall. It's a solid double, I think.
Maybe. Well, again, I think because the first half was so good. If the first half hadn't been as good, I probably wouldn't have been as bothered by the second half as much. But like, all right, like a good example, like the whole, like the couple in the basement, in the apartment underneath them, when they're fighting the thugs, and like it's like there's no other reason for that than comedy. And it's like, what are you doing? Put a comedy. Like, what is that? Why is that there? Like, so.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Dedo, because in the commentary track, Anthony Waller, the director, mentions that he got challenged on that by some of the co-producers on that, about, hey, he's like, maybe you shouldn't have as much humor here. You're kind of, lessening the tension here. And his opinion was he thought that it helped the tension a little bit more to kind of give a little release to it. I would mostly agree with that, although I think he maybe went a little too far in the slapsticky part of it. I think maybe I did laugh during some of that stuff, but maybe pulling that back a little bit might have been.
You do one shot of the couple in the bed, and then at the end you have the guy come upstairs.
Yeah, that pays off nicely. Yeah,
but 4 different shots of him smacking the ceiling and getting pissed off. And I was like, I don't know, maybe because I'm old now, I'm like, yeah, I kind of feel for this guy. That would be annoying. I would also like to sleep, like, so I don't know. What do you think, Ken?
Yeah, what are your reactions, Ken?
I also really enjoyed it. This is, I mean, really sweet spot of a movie for me. I love a good thriller. I love a good Hitchcockian thriller. I agree. I like the first 40 minutes, I think, the best. It's almost like it's almost like it's its own short film. Like it's such a great story right there. I love how they use whether it's locations or sets, it's so well. They use that set or that location so well, especially that hallway that they keep. So many scenes are shot in that hallway, which they, you know, make really great use of. Um, I do think it gets a little slapsticky in the second part, which didn't bother me as much. I kind of liked the humor, but I feel like plot wise, it gets really convoluted. Like I still don't know what's up with the diskettes and why they were how how why they had to have a snuff film to kill the girlfriend who had the diskette. It was a little lost on me, but I don't think it's I don't think you need to know. Like it's sort of your MacGuffin there,
Yeah.
the diskette. But again, to echo what Dedo said, I love the way it was shot. The sound design is great. I love that final chase down the hallway where she's got the key and the killer's right behind her, and it does this like
The dolly zoom.
dreamy
Yep.
dolly
Yeah, the vertigo
zoom
effect.
and a couple, yeah, but it's like kind of does it in a unique way because it like zooms out and then it's sort of normal and dolly zooms and it's normal and it has this feeling of like a dream or a nightmare, which I thought was so well done. I really liked. Apparently, the lead actress didn't speak any English, and
She did not.
I thought she was so good. You would never know. I mean, of course, she doesn't speak, but her performance was just really great. I
So
was
I
really
was gonna,
impressed.
this was gonna be my big question.
Yeah.
Is that why she's mute? Did
No.
they were they like, oh, she can't speak, so we're just gonna make her? Because like, I feel like honestly, I felt like a mute witness and in Russia was too much.
Mm.
Like, if someone handed me the script, I'd be like, pick one. Either you have a mute American in America, maybe in a seedy city, you know,
Yeah,
and she can't convince people, or we're in Russia and she just doesn't speak Russian. But
yeah.
like those two things combined, I don't know. I thought it was
Mm.
too
That
much.
that didn't bother me so much, except that I was expecting more of a payoff that she was mute. I
Mm.
thought maybe somehow her disability, for lack of a better word, would turn out to be a strength somehow at the end. Which so there wasn't really a payoff there. I did like that there was a payoff that she was a special effects makeup artist.
Yeah.
That that was cool.
And
But
I like too that they didn't focus on the muteness. Like there was never an explanation as to why.
Right.
There certainly wasn't any implication that she was going to find her voice at the last second. So like
right, I know
surprisingly,
I'm so
yeah,
glad they didn't do that.
surprisingly woke in that respect for a 1990s movie.
Yeah.
But I was just like, there's already a massive communication barrier, as evidenced when her sister and the director talked to the cops. Like you didn't need her to be mute. Like
Yeah.
it just was this extra layer. But plus, like she functions so well in that society. She's got a robo voice thing, like
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
potential obstacle actually like wasn't much of an obstacle.
Yeah. I
So
thought that was
Yeah.
a great gimmick
Although
too. That sequence with the robo voice, the TDD
yeah,
device.
that
That
was
yeah.
was a
cool.
nice spin
Yeah.
on that kind of
Yeah.
the killers in the house kind of
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah, and it was funny because I remember at one point I was like, wait, why didn't she use that earlier? I was like, oh yeah, no, she wasn't home before.
Yeah.
I'm so used to cell
Yeah.
phones when the phone is just
Right.
ubiquitous. And you're like, oh wait, no, you physically had to be somewhere with your robo voice.
Yeah. I guess they
Yeah,
could have found a way to make it. I mean, it did. The fact that she was mute did cause a lot of, did, get a lot of the plot going. Like she couldn't get out of the. I'm sure they could have found other ways if she was not mute to keep her trapped at the beginning in
Yeah, you could
the
have just made this. You
studio.
could have just made the security guard deaf instead of her being mute. Like, so she's yelling
Right,
at
or there could
him,
be no phone, or the
or
phone didn't work, or
you know,
something.
or
But
he's got big honking headphones on with his Discman that they bribed him
yeah,
with. You
yeah,
know, like,
yeah.
so I don't know. Like,
Yeah. So to go back to your point, to your question about the actress. So the actress is actually, she's a talented Russian stage actress, actually. And if you look her up on IMDb, she's got about 40 credits, all of which are Russian, except for this one, really. So she's mainly a Russian actress. And I loved her face. Like, she had a great face for this particular part. She almost had like a silent movie face, I thought.
Yeah,
Like, she would
very
have been great
expressive.
in like, yeah. And actually that was kind of a problem because she kept showing up late because she, as a stage actress, and apparently the director was saying this is common, is, obviously in Russia particularly, stage acting is the supreme art. I mean, it's the birth of Stanislavski and the method, right? So they take it very seriously. They look down on film for the most part, is what it is. And especially this film, because she thought it was kind of lowbrow and kind of not really very, very good. So she didn't really take it all that seriously, and yet she gives a great performance in it, which I thought was interesting. Would you like to guess who that role was offered to first?
Someone, someone we would recognize.
You may be able to guess.
Winona
So, oh yeah,
Ryder.
someone you would recognize as someone who is an actress who's famous for not being able to speak, or does speak, but has a disability.
Marley
From the
Matlin.
late 80s and early 90s.
Marley Matlin.
You got it. Yeah, they offered it to Marley Matlin,
Oh,
and
okay.
she turned it down. They didn't know why. Maybe she didn't like the story or whatever. But he also said that he offered it to a number of actors, and some actors didn't want to come because at the time, and we'll get into the chaos of the early 90s in Russia, because it is a whole deal that we'll talk about, because remember, the Soviet Union just collapsed a couple of years earlier, so it is not the greatest time to be in Russia. And there was a diphtheria epidemic in Russia at the time, and so he explicitly heard from some actors who did not want to come because of the diphtheria epidemic. So that was not a problem. He actually offered the part of Karen, her sister, who was played by Fay Ripley in the movie, the British actress, to Elizabeth Hurley, which I thought was interesting. She liked the script, but she wanted to play the lead, and they had already cast Marina Sudina in that part, so they had to turn her down because she didn't want to play the other part. She wanted to play the lead, and honestly, I think that is probably for the best. I don't think this film would have been as good with Elizabeth Hurley in the lead. Not necessarily just because she's in the beginning of her career and she hasn't really done many films yet, and so just wouldn't necessarily have the craft to do it. But just also, she's so. I mean, Marina is very beautiful. Obviously, she's movie beautiful, but Elizabeth Hurley is such, a supermodel that I don't know if anyone would buy her as an effects artist, as opposed to just look at her. Like, you could make way more money on the other side of the camera if you're not being an effects artist. So I think kind of buying her as like a workaday film person, I don't know that would have worked as well. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I
she
would
looks
say that'd be
more.
distracting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she looks more. Marina looks more like a normal, very beautiful, like you said, beautiful, but more like a normal person than Elizabeth Hurley would look.
Right.
Yeah, like you
And
absolutely believe that the cinematographer is hitting on her,
Yeah.
right.
but you're not like, oh, that's
Exactly.
clearly an actress. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And to answer your other question, Ditto, about the location. So you are correct in one sense in that the initial instinct was not to do it in Russia. So Anthony Waller, the director, was mainly scouting Chicago, is where he wanted to do it. He also looked at Boston, but it was mainly Chicago. But in looking at it from a budget standpoint, his co-producers kind of convinced him that shooting in Russia would be half the price. So he's like, okay. So they went there purely for budget reasons, but also, while I thought, the extra kind of fish out of water part of it would be interesting. And I agree. I think that part is interesting. To me, I could see your point, Dedo, that maybe it's a little one fish out of water too many because she's already, mute and slightly hard of hearing, so is already kind of a fish out of water in everyday life. I kind of like that part of it, but it does kind of add this extra layer. So including that one bit where they have to translate, she's talking to someone and they have to translate it from sign language to English and then from English to Russian, which I thought was kind
Yeah.
of interesting.
And there's also like, I mean, this is a personal thing, but like there's no thematic connection there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
you know, and I don't know how you would thematically connect not being able to talk with a location, but there's just like, it's just two random problems that they just kind of
Yeah.
stuck together. And I think you could, I mean, and maybe it would be cheesy, but you could almost argue that her inability to talk at all would make her a better communicator to the people who don't speak English, because
Who don't speak it right? Yeah, because it's more of an
but
international
they don't
language.
do
Yeah.
that either. Then that would have worked for me. But then you're making her life easier, not harder, which is not how you make a good thriller. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely would have had notes if I was handed the script. So
Yeah. Another interesting thing is that Marina had to learn American Sign Language, not Russian Sign Language, because it is different. Like Russian Sign Language is different from American Sign Language. So she had to learn American Sign Language as opposed to Russian, which I thought was kind of interesting. And also, Anthony Waller said that he learned Russian relatively quickly because he was paying close attention when his words are being translated, because everybody had their own translator. But he said all of his vocabulary was about like murder and film, and wasn't particularly useful outside of the film. So
that's like the joke about being a mystery writer, and your internet search history is always like incriminated.
Yes. So. Right, exactly. The other thing about shooting in Russia is that the first day of shooting was October 4th, 1993. This is also known as Black October, which is, Anthony Waller says that on the morning of October 4th, he was awakened as Boris Yeltsin's forces started bombarding the parliament building with tanks and munitions in an attempt to stave off a coup. So they had to delay shooting by a week because the city was under complete assault. So some of the kind of bombed out kind of production design was sort of already there because of the fighting recently. And they said anytime they had to get around, there was a curfew. They were always checked by military, sometimes like multiple times on the way to the studio. So it was like in total lockdown for most of the time they were there, because it was not a very good time to shoot in Russia. In fact, Anthony Waller, about 10 years later, went back to Russia to shoot some other stuff, some other projects, and he said the difference was night and day. He's like, when they were there the first time, it was a nightmare. And then later it got much more professional. Because when they first got there, probably. They found, so they were supposed to use all Russian equipment when they got there, but the equipment was in such disrepair and so ancient that they couldn't use it. So they had to ship 72 crates of film equipment from Munich to Russia right before they started shooting, and that equipment got held up in customs in Russia and just sat there because they wanted $60,000 in cash to release it, even though they had a carnet. And they wound up paying $5,000 and a crate of vodka to get it out, which is such a stereotype, but I guess it worked. But yeah, I've been lucky. I don't know how much you guys have shot in other countries, like with film equipment and video equipment, but I've done it. I've mostly had relatively good luck with this stuff because we use a thing called a carnet, which, if you don't know what carnet is, it's basically just a list of the equipment that you have and is signed and notarized and certified, saying this is what you can bring into the country and this is what you can bring back out temporarily. So it kind of speeds up the customs process. So I've mostly been lucky in that my shit hasn't been held up. But my boss, before I joined my company that I'm at now, he did a gig in India, I think it was, and this absolutely happened to him. Like, they completely confiscated all of his video equipment, and he had to pay a significant amount of money to get it out. So you never know when that's going to go down.
I had the opposite experience when I was in Prague during grad school. So we didn't import any equipment. We were using the equipment that the people there had, and the amount of equipment we were able to get for just peanuts. This was 2004. and it's like, so we roll up our first day of shooting our short film. We're it's a night shot. It's a church plaza, And we're like, hey, what lights did you bring? And our gaffer, who's like a full-blown professional. I mean, this guy is like, he's been around the block a few times, and he's like, well, I brought all of them. And then we're like, can you light this church? And he's like, no problem. And just pulls out this massive light, and we're like, oh my God, this is gonna be awesome. So then the only obstacle was when it came time to edit the movie, they didn't have a computer for us to use.
Oh no.
And because they were still like kind of like film students should edit on Steinbecks and stuff, and they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. So they ended up giving me this old Mac literally in a closet, running Final Cut Pro, and it is crashing so frequently. I set the autosave to every 5 seconds, and I literally would just like hit a button, autosave, hit a button, autosave, hit a button, crash, reopen the project.
Oh man.
And just keep going. Thankfully, it was a short film. But yeah, that was my foreign experience. I have not ever played with carnets, so
yeah,
But I do like carne asada.
It is fun stuff. And apparently at the time this was the largest props and props and something else department. Let me see what he said. He said it was hang on. Lost my notes there. It was the largest props and grip department in the country at the time. So the craft of the people there were relatively, solid, relatively good. It's just all the, drama around it was always difficult. And in fact, the bit early on when they're shooting the film within a film and all of a sudden the lights turn off and the director, Andy, he's like, well, no, what the hell's going on now? He put that in the film because that happened. They would be shooting at 6 p.m. exactly. All the lights would go off and they'd be like, nope, you're done. And he's like, but I'm in the middle of a shot. Like, nope, that's it. You're done.
That's so funny because that felt to me like that felt to me like something that might have happened. It's so funny.
It does feel real, doesn't it?
Like, oh, I bet that is real.
It absolutely was real.
It's based on reality.
I will say, speaking of all the Russian talent, the two bad guys, Oleg and I think the other guy is Igor. I'm not sure.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think they're named in the movie, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So the actors' names are Oleg, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce their last names, and Igor. but man, especially Oleg, who played Larson, who played the DP. Like, so he went from like kind of charismatic to menacing so well and so easily. Like, it just like excellent acting. Like, and the other guy was just like, like even in the very beginning where he like when he first shows up and he's laughing and he hands the other guy like a flask or something, and you're like, there's something wrong, there's something off with this guy. Yeah, it was just like those are also like great use of talent. So
yeah. I will say about them, and this is venturing into spoiler territory, but once they're gone, I miss them a little bit because they were such effective villains.
Yeah. And had great faces, like Dedo said.
Yeah.
Actually, Oleg Yankovsky, the guy who plays Larson, that's the police guy towards the end. Larson is the police guy, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I liked Oleg, too.
Oh,
yeah. I think the other guy's also Oleg, I think, the actor's name.
Okay.
But that guy, the camera guy, who, has that great look to him and is a really great villain, I think. Interesting story about him was he was on drugs all the time. And the director said he was completely uncontrollable because he was always on drugs and had this glassy-eyed look frequently. But he said that kind of worked for the character because he kind of looked more threatening than anything. So some of that's just not acting. He's just kind of doesn't know where he is most of the time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Do we want to talk about the one big cast member that we haven't mentioned, who we should probably talk about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can talk about that.
So this is officially Alec Guinness's final film appearance, even though it was not shot that way. So as you can imagine, Alec Guinness turns up for like a minute or two, just a brief cameo as the Reaper, who's the guy who's the ultimate bad guy in charge of this whole snuff film ring and pornography ring and bad guy stuff. So he's the guy that everybody is afraid of, and he's sort of like Kaiser Soze fashion. He's mentioned, in the movie earlier, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Reaper, the Reaper." So he shows up, and you're watching it, and you're like, "Oh, that's cool. That's random, but that's cool." Why is Alec Guinness in this movie? I bet there's a story behind it, and sure enough, there was a story behind it. So Anthony Waller, the director, met Alec Guinness in 1985 in Hamburg, Germany, which is where Waller was living at the time. And Guinness was there to accept an award for like a Shakespearean theater acting award. And he was talking with him, very gracious. And Waller just happened to ask him, he's like, "Hey, would you mind appearing in a film that I'm making? It'd be great to have you. I'd really like you. We can shoot it really quickly. It'd just be a little cameo." And he's like, sure. He was very gracious and very willing to help him out. But his rep said, Guinness is booked for the next year and a half. There's no way we can fit you in. You're just a student. We can't really do that. And Waller just spontaneously goes, "How about tomorrow morning?" And Guinness says, "Sure. If you can shoot me up before my plane leaves, yes, I'll show up." So Waller promised this without having a script, without having a crew, without having equipment, and without having a location. So now, in less than 24 hours, he has to pull together an entire film shoot, plus write whatever lines he's going to say, find a location, and pull this all together to shoot Alec Guinness. And he managed to do all that, getting in some film school contacts and some, commercial contacts he was working on. So he finally pulled it all together. They shot him in a parking garage. It's just a close-up, in the parking garage. And then when he was done, just 2 minutes worth of footage, a handful of takes. And then when they were done, the car that Alec Guinness is in the movie, he drives him to the airport in that car.
That was a nice car.
Basically when he was done, because he just rented the car for the day for the shoot, he just drove him to the airport. He was like, cut, and then drives to the airport straight from that car.
So that
well, that's efficient.
That explains the ending a lot. Because
yes.
when Inspector Klusowski, he just holds up the diskette and he's like, "I got the diskette," and then he goes back inside the building and
right.
You're like,
wait a minute.
Why is the Reaper okay with that? And the in-movie explanation is not terribly satisfying, so that makes a lot more sense. It's good to know people are pulling that shit even back then. Like you hear that stuff now, and it's like, oh, we only had Joe Estevez for a day, so
right, exactly.
Every other shot of him from behind is a mop.
At least it's Alec Guinness doing that. Yeah, exactly.
Although,
and of course,
I did not recognize him at all. Like, not surprising that it was his last shot. He didn't look great.
He still had the voice. The voice is still recognizable.
He did. And he did extend. So he had the two shots, really, just the wide shot, the medium shot, and the close up. But then I'm sure you noticed, like, to extend his screen time, he shows up twice. Once when the bad guys first kind of contact him, and then the second time at the very end. And you'll notice it's just the same footage flopped, right? So, and he doesn't have any dialogue there. He just basically every frame that he wasn't saying anything he used so that he could make it seem like it's a different scene. And to where this is clever filmmaking too, he knew that he may want to have an additional scene with him, so he gave him a walkie-talkie so that his voice would be slightly distorted, so he could get a sound alike to add any dialogue. And that's what he did. Actually, he hired there was like a British DJ actually who did kind of like Alec Guinness impression over the radio to kind of give him a little extra dialogue. And it's also the same actor who dubbed Larson, the Russian guy. His English lines were dubbed by him. So I thought that was a pretty clever way of kind of extending Alec Guinness's screen time. The other thing about him being one second, Ken. The other thing about him being in it, and the reason why he's billed in the credits as the mystery guest star. You'll notice it says the Reaper, and it doesn't say Alec Guinness. It says mystery guest star in the credits. He said that he could be in the film, but he could not be billed. He didn't want to be billed at all. And he also could not use Alec Guinness in any marketing. Like you couldn't put Alec Guinness's name above the title, or like say, Alec Guinness is in this film. He couldn't use him for marketing purposes. So that's kind of why it's billed that way and the marketing's done that way. Go ahead, Ken.
Kind of takes away the point of having him in the
Yeah, right.
film in
Like,
some ways, you know, because he doesn't do much. So
Yeah.
you would think they would get some marketing out of it. So had he passed away before the movie was
He
made?
passed away in
or-
'99 is
Oh,
when
in
he
99.
passed away.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I know that for a fact because I was working in the video store at the time, and I remember just all of our Alec Guinness films being gone because everyone, as soon as he passed away, everyone came in to rent all of his films.
Yeah.
And so this was shot in 1985, that footage,
Okay.
and the film was not started until '93. So
Wow.
8.5 years after that footage was shot,
and
it was used in the film.
I'm sure he got some funding by saying I've got Alec
Yes.
Guinness
Yes.
in the can.
It did. Yeah, it did
Yeah.
help, certainly. Yeah. And he also said it was interesting. Like, he was a student, so he's like, he had a moment to himself where he was like, okay, this is the first shot of my first feature film, and it's a close up of Alec Guinness. He's like, yeah,
Yeah, not bad.
that's a pretty good. It's all downhill from there, I guess. Really, you know.
And
It's
judging by his credits, I'd say it was.
yeah. He's worked steadily, but he hasn't, I think, reached the same heights as Mute Witness, I think. One thing that I want to talk about is I want to know what your guys think about the opening, because the opening, it starts with a film within a film, right? The film that they're shooting, and it's presented as, you know, initially you think it's real, and then slowly you realize it doesn't. I don't know what you guys think. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of thing. I think it's been done to death. It kind of starts the same way Blowout starts, and I kind of like the opening of Blowout, but and I think he does it in a good way. I think in a different kind of way, because even he in the commentary track he says one thing. He says in the commentary track, he says, "quote I hate film in a film openings." So he's actually opening his film in a way that he doesn't really like. So what I think is clever about it is, rather than having like one sudden shot where it's obvious reveal that it's a film within a film, he kind of slowly reveals that it's a film within a film. Like, there's little hints of it. And he's even said that, like, when he's shown it to people, he's like, different people cotton on at different points to realize that it's a film within a film. I kind of like that part of it. So I kind of even though I don't like those openings typically, I kind of give it a pass for that. I'm not sure what you guys thought of the opening and if it drew you in or not.
I agree with that, because I randomly happened to watch the beginning of Blowout again over the weekend, because it just happened to be on Amazon Prime. And so I noticed right away with Mute Witness that it was similar. But I do like, for one thing, the opening to Blowout is so much sleazier. But this is, I noticed how subtly, I like the subtle way they reveal. It wasn't like a big, Blowout has a big moment where suddenly you realize we're watching a film. And I think it was really well done. This really Mute Witness sets itself apart by slowly revealing through the credits that, okay, we're actually watching a film being made. So I agree. I like how that was done.
It was an awesome credit sequence.
Yeah.
I remember I was like, this is such a great way to do the credits. It was funny. I had no problem with it, but I think it was the moment the killer turns off the radio. For some reason, I said, oh, this is a movie within a movie. And maybe it was just because I knew just enough about the plot that I knew that this couldn't be the real plot. But there was something subtle that cued me in. But that being said, loved the killer's outfit, the nurse, like the nurse, and I was like, did the people from Silent Hill see this and like make a whole video game based on it? Like, that was such a cool killer look.
Yeah, it was actually a little Dressed to Kill. I thought it was.
Yeah.
That's the way Dressed to Kill ends, with he escapes dressed as a nurse.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it was funny because it was like, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is a movie within a movie. And then the killer goes and he steps back, and then someone like hands him a cigarette or something, and you're like, and then I was like, oh well, that could be. They did say there were 2 escapees,
right?
And then a third hand comes in. I was like, all right, that was cool. I like that. I did think it was funny the way everyone was laughing at her performance, because like it wasn't that funny to me. Like it was a little over the top, but it was like, but they were just letting it roll, and so That was a little incongruous,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
but also I feel like that was like more of an in joke kind of
Yeah.
thing. And
I did wonder why he didn't call cut if he wasn't. If he
Yeah.
didn't like the take. Why didn't he call
I was
cut?
like, man,
But then,
you're using 35 millimeter here,
Right,
dude. You are
right.
burning money on
right,
this.
right. But
Like,
then you realize the director's an idiot. So
yeah. Well, and I guess back then you did roll because you're like, well, I might use something in here.
yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
we only have Alec Guinness for 2 minutes. So.
Right.
yeah. I
Yeah.
did love how annoyed Billy gets when she's trashing the set, and you can tell like, oh, she's going beyond what was planned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I the opening did win me over after like, oh, because even knowing the premise of the film and everything, I'm like, even from the beginning, I'm like, okay, this is a movie in the movie, probably.
Yeah.
And then when it's revealed, I'm like, okay, that was a clever way to do it. I like the shots of the guys laughing because some people may think that, oh my God, that's so good. They're laughing at that woman being murdered, which I thought was kind of an
Right.
interesting way to do it. And then you kind of reveal further that it's a movie being shot. But I think like from the opening all the way that through the inciting incident all the way through the end of that first act, and Ken, you mentioned it would be like a great short film. I think it's to me it's one of the best openings to a suspense thriller that I've seen. Like it's just so, like you said, Dedo, all the things you said, Dedo, and the craft of it and the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the way it's put together. Like I just think it hooks you so well that like even if you are maybe a little let down by the ending, I kind of like the ending, but I get where you're coming from, Dedo. But like you just follow this movie wherever it goes because it's the opening. It's so well done and it sets you up and hooks you in so well that you're just willing to go wherever it takes you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think anyway.
I certainly wasn't tempted to turn it off.
Yeah.
It just like,
Right.
And honestly, the ending just feels like they ran out of money. And like if we had gotten an epilogue,
Yeah, it is a kind of Monty Python ending.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
Which
the cops show up and that's it.
If this was a comedy, fine, but it's not supposed to be a comedy. So yeah, but it's a minor demerit.
One thing I liked, just to add one more thing, is that in my mind, I thought, from what I knew about the movie before, I thought she was more of a victim, and I liked how resourceful she was as a character, and defending herself. Like she never was a victim throughout the movie, really.
Right. She's very proactive.
Yeah. And
she doesn't do kind of movie heroine stupid stuff. Like she kind of makes the decisions that someone in that situation probably would make.
Yeah.
And I think that's really well done. I also really like one thing about the second half of the movie, and I would agree, like the set piece, the suspense set pieces in the first half of the movie, or maybe even the first 2/3 of it or so, are so well crafted, like so very Hitchcockian, that it does kind of like, as the plot kind of closes in and kind of builds more to a climax, the set pieces do get a little more diffused and it starts to focus a little more on the plot than it did before, and the plot's not all that interesting. But what I like about the drama of the second half is, so we have this character named Larson, who Dana mentioned before is played by Oleg, whose last name I'm not going to butcher again, who is a very well-respected Russian actor, and he has this kind of interesting face to me. Like he shows up at a point in the movie, he's introduced as a guy who's a policeman who's trying to track down the Reaper and these people who make these snuff films, and he has this sort of like face that's a little different and seems a little more trustworthy to me. But then it slowly starts to reveal that maybe he's actually working with the Reaper, and he's kind of like the Reaper's inside man in the police to find out, keep tabs on what's happening, and he's actually working with him. So there's this great moment in the car when he shows up and kind of sort of rescues Billy, and she starts to trust him, and then she kind of gets a sense that, oh, he's asking too much about this diskette. He seems really interested in it. Maybe he's not trustworthy. So I really like that scene in the car where she's like, she doesn't know who to trust. Can she trust her crew? Can she trust this man she just met who may or may not be a police officer? I thought that was really well done. And her reactions, her facial expressions and the way that's all played out, and leading all the way up to the ending, to the climax, I really thought that was handled pretty well. So while maybe the tension and the suspense maybe slackens a little bit, I think the drama around her gets a little, ratchets up a little bit, enough for me to kind of redeem the second half of the movie.
Yeah, I got a real Jean Reno vibe from that dude.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, I mean, yeah, like that scene in the car where she jumps out of the car, then she jumps back in the car, and she outsmarts him by handcuffing him. That stuff was all great, but then it was also marred by him kind of like goofily checking her out as she puts her clothes on, and like like it's just real inconsistent moments where you're like, wait, is this a sex comedy? Is he just like just saw his first movie? Like, because that's the face he's making, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah, no, it was honestly, yeah, it's well, even the second half is well written.
Yeah.
You know, it's just there's just some goofy moments. You're just like, where did this come from? So
And then the climax, which I think is pretty well done, you know, getting the spoilers essentially. And what did you guys think of? So there's a bit where, you know, she's kind of surrounded, the bad guys are there. Larson, the police person who she's again not sure about, and seems like he may be with the bad guys. Um, he actually shoots her in a big spectacular, you know, blood packets, you know, kind of blowing up in her body, and she falls over dead, and her friends, her sister and the director think she's dead. And then the bad guys, you know, pull away. And then it turns out she actually is not dead. She's actually alive, and she used her, as Ken said, used her special effects makeup knowledge to put those blood packs on her, and Larson fired blanks to make it look like she was dead, so the bad guys would leave her alone, which I think is really well done. And the shot that I love is the reveal of that she's alive. So she, you know, she dies spectacular, quote unquote, dies spectacularly, and her sister is distraught and everyone's freaking out, and then the bad guys have left and she's kind of by herself on the ground, and her sister's kind of walking over to her, like just licking her dead body, and there's a close-up of her face, and she opens one eye and smiles, and she's looking straight at the camera. And I just really liked that directorial choice of just like essentially, you know, the actress or Billy just kind of saying, hey guys, I'm back. Just kind of like, no, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I just kind of liked that reveal. That made me laugh. And then of course she gets up and she's, you know, all is resolved and everything is hunky dory. And then I liked they're standing around. And there's a moment of tension where Larson is like, you know, the Reaper is still out there or whatever, and there's a moment of tension, and then Andy, the director, accidentally hits the button on the remote, and a blood pack goes off. And I kind of, the first time I saw that, I actually jumped a little bit. I was like, oh my God. Because at first you're like, you know, the movie's not dark enough necessarily that you think that they would kill the protagonist. So I never really thought that she was going to die. But then when they did that, I'm like, holy shit, they really did it. Like she really is going to die. And then it turns out it's just a joke because he accidentally pushed the button to let one more squib go off. So I thought that was really clever too. I really like that.
So I agree with all that. I did kind of be like, oh wait, you know, just as she's getting shot, I was like, oh wait, this is gonna be fake. But I do think it's a missed opportunity, and again, understandable because Alec Guinness, you know, yada yada yada, he's playing the Reaper. But there is a line where they're like, the Reaper wants another snuff film. He wants to see her die. So like it would have been so cool if like they were like, you're gonna get the bloodiest death you know, and he's like, and he's so enamored of it that they get the drop on him or something.
Yeah.
Instead they had to
that
do
be
this
good.
very awkward thing where, you know, Inspector Kluskowski he's like, I got the discount, bye bye, and then he just like disappears, and they're all like, cool, we're done here, drive away. Like definitely
that's
like,
true.
First time filmmaker problems there. Like,
yeah, it does feel like an abrupt wrap up, definitely.
I like I do somewhat related. I'd like the other fake out earlier when one of the villains goes and stabs the director.
That was great. And
that's at that time in the film, I like, oh, maybe he might really be dead. So I thought that was well done.
I was disappointed he wasn't dead. It was annoying.
Yeah. So to set that up for an audience that hasn't seen it, so at the end of the kind of first act, after she's witnessed this murder, and she brings the police to the studio because she's trying to convince them that it was real. And actually, the premise of the movie kind of, what's interesting, kind of turns on the fact that as an effects person, she can recognize when it's real and when it's not, between the craft of it and also just the reaction on their face. Like she knows when it's real and when it's not, and she's trying to say it was real, but the bad guys who are there are trying to convince the police that no, it's not real. It was just a fake effect. So at one point, Igor, one of the guys, grabs a knife and stabs the hell out of the director, super violently. Like there's blood spurting and it's just stabbing really hard, and it's done so violently and so like there is a moment where you're like, yeah, is he really killing him? And maybe and to go further, like maybe are the police like in on this whole ring, and like so basically everybody in the room is in on it except for the director, Billy, and her sister, and that's it. And now it's really gonna close in around them. But then it's revealed that no, it was just a fake knife. It was just super bloody and super graphic, which I've cleverly shot.
Yeah, that was especially because like they're all. It was another great example of the cinematography being amazing because like they're all huddled around, and the one dude kind of sneaks off and like gets the knife, but it's all in shot.
Yeah.
But it's totally plausible that they wouldn't
Yeah.
notice him doing that.
And you sort of see it from Billy's point of view, and she's trying to get their attention,
Yeah.
but because she can't speak, she
Right.
can't yell. So yeah, it was very well shot.
So I will say, not to be hypercritical, but too late. There is like a pretty major plot hole during that whole scene because like never once are they like, cool, just let us talk to the actress. Like the whole time they're like,
Right.
no, it was fake. It was
Right.
movie.
Right.
We did not kill her.
Right.
Like the cops absolutely would be like, we need to talk to the actress.
Yeah. I also wonder too why she didn't send them to the body first thing.
Right. Although I think,
and then how did they
actually
sneak the body out?
I think that's actually covered in the movie because like she hides under the bags, and then she sneaks. She gets out of there a little bit, and then she hears a noise because dude comes back and he takes the body bags.
Okay.
And he takes them off screen, and then she goes running the other way, and then she runs into the other dude again.
Okay,
That
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
I guess I
just finally discovered.
didn't understand. I missed that.
Yeah, so they do actually
somehow.
cover that they move the body.
Okay, but you still would think she doesn't know that. So why isn't she?
Right.
First thing, the body's in the elevator shaft.
Body's in the floor of the elevator because these dudes are lazy. Also, that's I guess they make really good trash bags in Russia because like those like you drop that thing down a few stories and it doesn't just like explode.
Yeah. Indeed. And then I also like the little tag kind of at the end with the car exploding, where the kind of the Palma like push in on the bad guy in the back seat. So every time someone's dying, the director Waller does this cool like De Palma like thing, Brian De Palma thing, where he punches in like 3 shots, getting closer and closer to the victim's face with this like Bernard Herrmann like screech on the soundtrack to show that it's real. Though like it's not a fake killing, it's a real killing, and which is a really great kind of filmmaking grammar to show you every time I do this, it's a real thing. And then he kind of reprises that at the very end because like the Larson, the Russian guy, gets into a car and he's going to drive them to the police station to arrest them and everything. So he's got 2 bad guys in the back, and then all of a sudden the bad guy in the back like turns to the window and turns to Billy, and Waller does that thing where he like zoom, the quick cuts into him and the soundtrack, saying he really knows he's going to die, and that's what clues Billy into the fact that oh no, that car is going to explode because this person knows he's going to die and he knows it's going to rig. And then she has to signal Larson to get out of the car, which again, she's mute, so she can't, do it. She tries to warn him. And then he finally, at the last minute, he jumps out of the car and the car explodes and the bad guys are vanquished.
Still might be dead. We're not like he jumps out, but he still gets blowed up and then he's lying down.
Well, no, I think he kind of like, it almost looks like there's wire work there, right? When he kind of like jumps out of the car and kind of like floats out of the car, essentially,
and
like really gets
stunt double is on fire.
He is.
But then it cuts to the actor and he's like, "Hey."
Yeah, he's alive.
Okay.
He's definitely alive. Yeah, he's saying
waves?
he's okay.
I don't.
He's like,
he does.
He sits up and he smiles anyway.
I must have like glanced away for a second.
Yeah, it's very quick, Dedo. It's like the last shot right before they cut the credits.
Okay.
So
yeah,
you could have easily missed it. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing though. So it's like, okay, so if he actually survived, where's the diskette? Is it in his jacket? Then it's probably still preserved too. I assumed he was dead and the diskette was toast. So is it a hopeful ending? Is it a sad? Like, is it a
hopeful, right?
Right.
defeative? Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
like.
hopeful.
Yeah.
We
We'll have
need
to wait for the
we
sequel.
need Mute Witness 2, Mute
Yeah.
Harder.
Although he did say, Waller did say on the commentary track, there is a remake being planned. I'm not sure why, but
Yeah,
because
because
not sure
Hollywood's
what
out
you
of
do with the
ideas.
remake,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe. But okay. Any other thoughts or comments about anything in the movie or how it affected you at all?
I mean,
Any
I would
final
just
thoughts on
simply
that?
say that, like, watch this one at least on a television-sized screen. Do not watch this on your laptop. Do not watch this one on your iPad or your
Right.
phone. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a blockbuster, but you do want to give the cinematography room to breathe.
Yes.
Absolutely
Yeah.
watch it. At
Yeah.
least watch it on a television.
I also watched it on Shudder, and I thought it looked great on
Yeah,
Shudder.
it looked damn
Whatever version they're using there.
Yeah, and thank God we are in the widescreen world because, as you can imagine, I first saw this film on VHS. This movie is butchered on pan and scan VHS. Like, if you can imagine, how would you even do that? Because again, the 235 frame is used so well to set up the tension and suspense that a pan and scan VHS just destroys it.
Oh,
Completely destroys it.
I had one other thought since
Yeah.
we're back on that. So I did not have subtitles turned on for the movie at all. So I took that to mean, though, that all the Russian is not subtitled,
Correct.
right? That's
Absolutely.
really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Like, that puts you so firmly in the world. And I think that's why I was like, she doesn't need to be mute also. We're just none of us know what is going
None
on.
of us know what's going on, right?
Right? Like,
But yeah, I
so-
thought that was such a great directorial choice to not have any Russian subtitles. So every time
Yeah.
they're speaking Russian, it's either translated so you don't need them, or you just have to go by their
Yeah.
body language and by what they're saying, which most of the time you can kind of tell. So
right. There were one
I
or
thought
two
that was a really
moments
great
where
choice.
someone would switch into English for a very important line, and you were like,
Yeah.
okay, that was clearly a producer note, you know.
Right.
Like, but overall, I really liked that. I had no idea what there's. So, all right,
Indeed.
let's
So,
budget.
so now, yeah, so now we got to do now it's game time. So first game, the budget game, which I have a specific number. And so you've had some hints along the way. You know that the budget doubled. You know that at least $5,000 in a crate of vodka was spent. So do you guys want to venture a guess? I'll give you one other hint too. I don't know how helpful this would be, but the movie was co-financed by Waller himself after saving up over 10 years of doing commercial gigs. So he saved some money over 10 years to put up some of the money. So there you go. And remember, it is 35 millimeter film, so it is the film era. So Dedo, do you want to? You have a very pensive look on your face there. You can you're really considering all the angles here.
It's funny because I was here, and then you're like, Waller co-financed it, and I went down. You're like, by being a commercial director, and I was like, oh, okay, we're back up.
Back up
'Cause,
again.
like, you made good money doing that back then, and now too, actually. So I am going to say, 10 mil.
Okay.
I think it was the 90s, so we're not
everything costs more.
we were not in micro budget filmmaking yet. 35 millimeter is expensive.
Yep.
But it was shot in Russia.
It is a Russian crew.
A lot of the cast and crew are Russian, so that's going to take it down. But then you had things like the fact that they were like, "Oh, we'll just order an entire movie's worth of equipment."
Right.
From Germany, like, tells me that there was at least some real money behind this. So my guess is it was gonna cost 20 mil in America. They got it down to 5 mil. It doubled to 10.
Okay.
So
solid logic.
I'm going with 10 mil, but I can tell by your voice that I'm wrong. So
okay, that's right. Ken, do you want to? I'm not going to say either way. Ken, did you want to give it a go?
I think 10 mil is too high.
Okay.
So I'm gonna Price is Right it and go 9.9. No.
$1.
Right. No, I think I'm gonna go 5 million.
Okay. Solid logic to it all the way. The final number was $2 million. So it was budgeted at 1 for Russia, and then
Wow.
it doubled to 2.
Okay.
So pretty solid logic. But and also while they're on the commentary track says that there was some issue with paying the crew, which was that in talking to the crew, he found that they were being dramatically underpaid, but he was being overcharged for what he was giving them. So somebody was taking quite a bit off the top, taking the money and said, "Oh yeah, the crew will cost this much." He paid that, and then someone was keeping a good portion of that and giving the rest to the crew and underpaying them. So that was a whole other issue that they had to deal with.
Not
Okay,
surprising.
solid budget game, I think. And then we come to the other fun game that we have, which is the Walken Awards. To recap what the Walken Awards are, which is that we take either lines that an actor puts, ordinary lines that an actor puts a dramatic Walken-like spin on them, or just really lines that we really like that Christopher Walken would really knock out of the park. Now, this being a largely visual Hitchcockian thriller, plus a main character who doesn't speak, there is pretty slim pickings in terms of Walken Awards. Because there is, enough dialogue, but the dialogue is largely functional in this movie. There's not a whole lot of great lines that are taken away. So do you guys want me to start with the Walken Awards? Do you guys have some picked out at all?
I don't have specific lines, so
I'll take your silence as meaning no.
I'm tweaking my nominee for, instead of it lines, I want, these are the 2 roles I would replace the actors with Walken. So
Okay. Interesting.
Either director Andy, because he was so annoying. It would have just been so much better to have Christopher Walken in there, so he could say things like, "What do you mean we can't shoot anymore? The lights go dark at 6 o'clock." Or Ole or Larson, Detective Larson. He, Walken as Detective Larson would have been great.
Yeah.
Then you really wouldn't know whether to trust him.
Yeah.
I am undercover for this snuff film, white trafficking, sex market. Have you heard of the Reaper? So specific lines, not so much, but that's, if I could go back in time.
Yeah.
I would.
What would Christopher Walken be like in American Sign Language? Would you be able to get his Walken
very
cadence from
very
ASL?
Expressive.
I think that I no way can imagine that. So
yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Ken, do you have any candidates?
I had a couple.
Okay.
So one was Igor, and he says, Igor. He says, "We try make blood much big." I kind of like that one.
That's my first one. I have one.
Okay.
Yes, we make tests for you. We make blood much big.
I liked when the sister says, "Because you're a wuss." I like that line. And then I liked the robot. "Hello, this is Billy Hughes speaking."
That would have been amazing.
"Hello, this is Billy Hughes speaking." It would have been good if it was Walken.
Oh my God, that's hilarious, Ken. I love that. So she has like a TDD, like a computer that speaks lines for her into the phone. So she has a little mouse, so she can either type what to say, or she has pre-selected, phrases that she can select. And it's a robot voice, but having it, "Hello, this is Billy.
Hello.
You can't come to the phone." That would be pretty great.
If you're patient, I will speak to you. Side note, so I remember as a teen going to, I think, the Boston Science Museum, and they had one of those, and it was like you could type in whatever you wanted, and of course if you tried to type a swear, it wouldn't let you do it, and it would do that, and it would do that voice, and it's just funny to think that was considered so cutting edge, because it wasn't pre-recorded. It was like generating the sounds, and it sounded horrible, but it was like the first just like computer generated speech. And it's just like such a great example of stuff we take for granted now, where we're just like, oh yeah, we have that all over the place and it sounds mostly normal. And back then that was like just cutting edge. That was so.
Yeah, I have one which is when Andy, so they have the what they think is the actual snuff film. So like they say, well, we'll look at the film and we'll see if this is true. And it turns out the bad guys give them the wrong film. They give them the film from the opening, the film within a film, the bad slasher version. And so at one point, Andy, the director, finds out that they've seen the film and it's only the opening of the film. It's not the snuff film. So he's kind of breathes a sigh of relief. And he tells the sister, he says, "There's nothing to worry about. The film's the biggest piece of shit he's ever seen," which I thought was pretty funny.
That's good.
Yeah, and so there's the moment where he realizes, oh great, it's not, it's just a crappy movie. Then he slowly realizes, oh wait, that's my movie. It's a piece of crap, which I thought was very funny. And there's also, it's an ordinary line, but I think Dedo, if you can indulge me and do one as Walken, they call him the Reaper. Larson says that in a very kind of sober, dramatic tone, but I think Walken could do a much better spin on that. I think. What do you think, Dedo?
I actually, I gotta say, I feel like my walking game is really off today. But I will try. What do you remember the whole line though, where it's like they call him the Reaper because if you see his face, you die? Because
when you see his face, it's the last thing you see before you die.
Yeah. So, all right, let's see here. They call him the Reaper because if you see his face, you die.
Yeah, we were correct. That would definitely be better as Walken.
Yeah. Although I do like the idea of director Andy being Walken. That would have been kind of funny too.
Yeah, that would be pretty great.
I'm making my famous chili in Russia for some reason.
Right. So random.
Yeah. And I was like, did he bring his own spices? He has a whole like grandma spice rack that he's using.
He's got a whole thing in there.
And I was like, how long have they been working on this movie? He has moved into this place.
A couple of notes. Anthony Waller actually went to film school in Munich with Nick Park, who of Aardman Animation and Wallace and Gromit fame, which I thought was interesting, and also with Roger Christian of Battlefield Earth fame.
Oh,
so there you go.
All right, never mind.
Yeah. Well, actually, Roger Christian was, is pretty great as in terms of like an art director and set decorator, but not so much as a director, because he worked on Star Wars and Alien in that capacity, but directed Battlefield Earth. So, and one last thing, there was another movie shooting in Russia at the time. Only one other movie was shooting there because of the conditions and the cheapness. Do you want to hazard a guess as to what the other movie? It was an American film shooting in Moscow at the same time.
Hunt for Red October.
No, that was 89, 90 when
damn
that was.
93. 93?
93 is when it was shot, yeah.
Okay.
And into 94, I think, too.
Okay.
GoldenEye.
It is a franchise entry, a franchise film.
Oh, Mission Impossible?
No.
Oh.
Not that big.
Okay.
So think of a cheap franchise that would shoot in Moscow to save money because they are so incredibly cheap, and there's been diminishing returns of this franchise from the 80s into the 90s. It is actually a return. They hadn't done one for a while. It's the 7th entry in this franchise, as a matter of fact.
Oh, we are failing. This is why we only watch obscure movies.
I know.
That's right. It is largely a forgotten
horror franchise?
It is a comedy franchise, a lowbrow comedy franchise.
Revenge of the Nerds 7. Nerds go to Russia.
You're not far, Dedo. You're not far.
Police Academy.
Yes, you are correct, Dedo. You got it. Police Academy 7, Mission to Moscow was filming at the same time.
Pretty sure I've seen that movie.
I've seen all the Police Academies, I'll have you know. So yeah, there you go.
Well, what pedigree.
That's right. At least it's better than Mission to Moscow. Give it that. That's right.
Is it? I think we need to watch Mission to Moscow.
Yeah, maybe that'll be Ken's selection next. Is Police Academy 7.
I know. Stay tuned.
That's right.
Did Steve Gutenberg ever come back for any of those?
No, he did not. He was done after 4. So it's not much trouble.
R.I.P. Mahoney.
Indeed. Okay, so that's Mute Witness. We're all giving it thumbs up, and I would go on to say I love this film. I think it's a really underrated movie. It's a film that really needs to be kind of in the classic thriller, like in the Hitchcockian sort of canon. I think the way De Palma movies are always kind of built up as like all ultimate Hitchcockian things. I think this is better than most of De Palma's movies in terms of how it's executed.
Hot take.
Certainly not up its own ass like the Palma movies are. I think that first, like I said, we talked about that first act is as great a first act, that a thriller can have. I think it's really like if you're a film student, studying thrillers or writing a thriller script, you could do worse than to study Witness's first act into how to set up your movie and how to, craft it and really make it go and really draw you in. So yeah, it's pretty widely available. As I said, it is available for physical media people. The Arrow Films 4K and Blu-ray, I highly recommend. It's a great transfer. It looks gorgeous, and as Ken and Dedo said, it's available on Shudder and all of your digital platforms for rental. We definitely recommend you track it down because you will not be disappointed. Even if you're not a horror aficionado or suspense aficionado, I think it's well done enough that you would still, I think, enjoy it. So, an unequivocal recommendation from No Really Trust Us. So that's Mute Witness. Go out there and watch it. Stop listening and go watch it. That's all for now. And Dedo and Ken, say goodbye to the people.
Bye,
Goodbye,
people.
We will see you next time on No Really Trust Us.
Thanks for listening. If you've got a movie that you love and you think more people should know about, drop us a line at noreallytrustus@gmail.com or on Instagram @noreallytrustus. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.